Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. Today, guys, we're going to be diving down into the charts to try to answer the question of, is VET a good investment in 2022? Now, as we get into this video, if you find it useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you are going to be kept up to date with all the videos that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. Now, if you haven't yet joined us in Discord, links in the description down below, completely free to join. Fantastic community talking crypto 24/7. We also do a lot more technical analysis on a whole host of different altcoins down in Discord, so why not go ahead and check that out. Right, with all that said, done out of the way, let's jump on down into the desktop and take a look at some Vechain here and what's going on in terms of whether we think it's a good investment for 2022 or not. Right, guys, we're going to start things off with our weekly chart, right? Because we don't want to necessarily be talking about the micro movements of the hourly chart or that of the 4-hourly daily chart. Really, we want to have a good macro view here on what is going on with Vechain and what we think is likely to happen next. Okay, so here we obviously just have the weekly chart, and it's obviously pretty decent, right? We've seen data here from Binance, as early as July 2018. We can see that there was a low point down here. This was March 2020. We obviously have 2021 being a really good year. We obviously have the all-time high being set, the corrective pattern that we're in right now, and then, where do we go from there? So, kind of going to show you this. This is obviously the overlay of all the analysis that we would normally do. And we can see that we have moved up from the lows of March 2020 through to the all-time high back in April of 2021. It was 17,900%, and it's not too bad. We can see here that we had the ABC move up and we're having an ABC corrective move down. And all of this can be, put into place to say that we actually have here 5 waves overall, as in wave 1, 2, 3 up into the all-time high, wave 4 coming down into the corrective move, and then a 5th wave much higher. So in terms of whether we think, that Vechain is a good investment, it's pretty obvious just by taking a look at the structure of the data that yes, it's going to be potentially pushing up quite significantly in the coming months. And there's a couple of things that I'm going to go through today that hopefully will kind of cement this in your mind so you can do more research, right? Because it is important that you understand that I am not a financial advisor. I cannot give you financial advice, but I can of course read this data and I can give you my thoughts and opinions on what it is suggesting. So when we take a look at this, we can see that we are looking at this ABC move. Potentially there's a little bit more downside here, taking us down to a 1-to-1 ratio with the A and the C wave. But technically speaking, this could also be the low point that's come in, and we could potentially move on from here. But I do want to be aware that there is a chance that we do go down a little bit lower. Now, in order to remain structurally sound on this particular analysis, we have to also acknowledge that we shouldn't really cross 2.2 cent. If we were to drop down lower than 2.2 cent, it effectively would mean that this 4th wave has crossed wave 1 and there's no 5th wave higher. And instead, we're just looking at a bunch of corrective moves, ABC up and ABC down. Obviously, when it comes to Elliott wave theory, it's very simple. You have an ABC move up. This will always be followed by an ABC move down. Okay, and likewise, if you have an ABC up, it's also possible that this ABC move that starts off as an ABC turns impulsive and actually goes and changes into 1, 2, 3 with a 4th and a 5th wave, right, going down lower. So we also should be very aware of these kind of things. But in its fundamental basics, when we're actually looking at this corrective move and this ABC coming down, it's an ABC that you would expect to find inside that 4th wave. There's nothing unusual about this. It's not when you kind of consider things like Cardano, where they actually had an expanding flat correction, for example. This one here is actually pretty standard. It's a pretty standard ABC, and there's nothing too special about it. So here we can see that there's a potential low point of about 3.5 cent, and before we start to think about moving on up. Now, the trend-based Fibonacci retracement tool here is indicating about $1.20, but we could potentially go much higher than that. If we were to just throw on a standard fib from the high point down to as low as 3.5, we actually can see here that the 1.618 comes in at $1. Okay, that would be a pretty big resistance point for Vechain. So if we were to see the 1.618 get hit, that would be $1 threshold. And again, you could talk about maybe moving higher than that in due course. So I'm going to delete that for now. We won't talk about too much about price predictions and expectations, but $1 is definitely right up there with our expectations on that move. Now, when we think about, percentages from this potential low point, I'm going to take the existing low point though, up to, that $1 threshold. It's an extra 2,400%. It's definitely not what you would expect to see from the bear market lows all the way up into these fantastic highs, right? Because if you're an early adopter of Vechain back in 2020, like myself and Chris, then, we've enjoyed pretty much very significant gains. And, we haven't actually sold any. We've just kind of hodled onto it. And we do anticipate a further push to the upside, an additional 2,400%. Overall, though, if we were to actually then go ahead and move this up, we'd see this would come in at about 64,000% from 2020 through to, up to a potential high of $1, right? So pretty significant gains to be made there if you're an early adopter. And it's the bear market that actually generates that level of wealth, right? The bear market is where all the money is made. And this is actually a pretty late stage in the bull cycle with this fourth wave correction, which is what it is. It's a fourth wave correction. And then we should be pushing up higher. This is the last little leg, the blow off top, the alt season, right? And effectively, this is the last part of the bull run. We're not necessarily going to see huge gains, but we are going to see pretty significant ones. So when we start thinking about, what patterns are here and is it actually a good investment, it's going to be hard to find one that's pushing as much as that because Vechain has had a pretty significant correction, right? It's hard to ignore, and I know there's a lot of bears that would say we are in a bear market because we have seen an 86% drop. Now that is a very, very significant drop from all-time high, right? But it's still within its structure. So whether we want to call this a bear market, which it would be out of character for crypto space because the crypto space has a different kind of way of approaching bear markets. They're multi-year, 18 months, 24 months. And you normally lose about 95%, right? And 95% of value coming off of Vechain here would actually ruin the structure. It would break the structure, and it would see us move right down way past 2.2 cent to approximately 1.2. Again, this would be like the wave 2 low areas, right? So if we were in a crypto bear market, that's the kind of drop that we would be looking for and expecting. I think this is actually just a standard corrective move inside this fourth wave on our weekly chart. So what makes me think this? Well, there's a couple of things that we should be acknowledging, right? We cannot just use Elliott wave on its own. We need a little bit of assistance behind some momentum of the price action. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump down into this data once again, and we're going to review that stochastic RSI. We couple the stochastic RSI information with the Elliott wave structure, and we're able to get a bit of an idea as to what might actually happen here. So we are heavily oversold on this weekly chart, guys. For reference, I guess, you can see that we're oversold here, and we're oversold here, we're oversold here, and we're oversold here. Now, if I actually transpose these positions over onto the chart, you can see that when we were oversold, we had this push here of about 1,300%. And when we were oversold again down here, we pushed up an additional 3,094%. Now, from here, we actually only had a small B wave high, but we did actually push up, and I'll grab hold of my percentages for that. And that was a move that saw an extra 267 or so percent. We are now in a very similar position. We're oversold, and we should be thinking about pushing on up. Okay, so this is actually the point where you want to kind of maximize your gains or your potential to earn. Then it's at the time where there's immense amount of fear, where the ultimate amount of value is going to be derived, right? And we often say there's blood in the streets, you should buy that. Or we often say, buy the fear, and all these other kind of sayings that you hear in the crypto space. They're specifically true for the right kind of criteria, and this is the kind of criteria that you might want to consider. But as I said earlier, I'm not a financial advisor, and you should go and do further research. When it comes to Vechain, there's actually a lot of FUD out there. You have to do a lot of research to cut through the absolute bullshit and to find the correct information. So it's definitely one you're going to want to investigate a little bit further if you're unfamiliar. But ultimately, this weekly chart is actually looking very, very good. It's pretty well structured. So as we come down the time frames, it gets a little bit messier, right? We can see here that we are expecting some more downside. As I said, right, 3.5 cents seems to be an area that would resonate incredibly well. It's a 1-to-1 ratio with the ABC move. So we want to make sure that kind of, we see how that plays out. As we come down these, obviously we're heavily oversold on the 8-hourly. The 4-hourly is obviously quite heading to overbought, so we should be looking for pullbacks. We do have that kind of scoped out as well in here around 4.2 cent or so, something like that. So again, check out our Discord if you're looking for more detailed analysis on the kind of smaller time frames and the smaller moves. we are expecting some kind of pullback here with Vechain on the smaller time frames. But ultimately, you know, there is value to be had here on that larger time frame, on the macro view, when we start thinking about what this structure looks like, what this means longer term, and all the fantastic things that might come here next for Vechain. Significant gains potentially are just around the horizon. So to answer the question, do I think Vechain is a good investment in 2022? Yes, I do. I've been invested since 2020, and I continue to look at Vechain dollar cost average occasionally here and there, and I know Chris does as well. It is a position, you know, in this space that I ultimately do not worry about. It's heavily integrated across enterprises around the world, from China to the US, all the way through to the UK, where I am here today, and across Europe as well. They do a lot of things, and they're entering the DeFi space too, and I think that's going to have another profound effect on the ecosystem. So not only is it B2B, which it has been heavily focusing on for years, but now it's also trying to look at the retail customers as well and becoming B2C. I think there's going to be a lot going on here with the launch of their stablecoin, the DeFi space, and everything else that they've been well known for, from supply chain all the way through to, you know, various other applications, from NFTs, smart contracts, and of course, as I said, the traceability and authentication perspective. So yes, I do think Vechain is a good investment in 2022, but make sure you do your own research, dig deep. There is a lot of FUD around Vechain, lots of noise, and you have to cut through that to find the actual truth out. Guys, if you have found this video useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you are going to be kept up to date with everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. With all this said, done, and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.